Welcome to Nightmare Fuel Stories. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy the stories. Number the void between. The first thing that struck me as wrong was the silence. Space stations aren't silent places. That's a misconception from old sci-fi films. The ISS Hermes hummed constantly with the sound of air circulation systems, water recyclers, computer fans, and 6 human beings going about their daily routines in a habitat roughly the size of a 5-bedroom house. Even during sleep cycles, the background drone of life support never ceased. But as I drifted awake in my sleep pod that morning, or what we called morning in the arbitrary 24-hour cycle we maintained, something felt off. The ambient noise had changed, not disappeared, but altered in a way my sleep-fogged brain couldn't immediately identify. "Dr. Chen," I called out, expecting my bunkmate to respond from her workstation across our shared quarters. Nothing. I checked my tablet. 700 hours. She should have been up already, probably analyzing the latest batch of microgravity crystallization samples we'd been growing for the pharmaceutical consortium that partially funded our mission. I unzipped my sleep restraints and pushed myself out, catching a handhold to orient my body in the zero-G environment. 6 months into a 1-year mission aboard Hermes, and I still sometimes woke disoriented, my inner ear struggling with the absence of down. "Chen," I called again, louder this time. Our quarters were empty. Her sleep pod was open, tablet missing. Nothing unusual there. She often started work early. But that strange quality to the ambient noise persisted, like listening to a familiar song where someone had subtly altered the backing track. I tapped my comm badge. "Commander Reeves, this is Specialist Novik. Is everything all right with the life support systems?" "The station sounds different," Static answered me. "Not complete comm failure." I could hear the open channel, but no human response. I pulled myself to the small mirror mounted near my personal storage compartment. My reflection looked back at me. Dr. Ivan Novik, 34, neurobiologist, dark circles under my eyes despite 8 hours of regulated sleep. My dark hair, cut practically short for space travel, floated around my head in the zero gravity. I smoothed it down and secured it, more out of habit than necessity. "Get it together, Eva," I muttered to myself. Probably just a comm glitch. I dressed quickly in the standard blue jumpsuit with the Hermes mission patch, a stylized Greek god carrying a message to the stars, and made my way to the main habitat module. The corridors were empty. Not necessarily alarming. With only 6 crew members spread across a station with 8 primary modules, it wasn't unusual to traverse sections without encountering anyone. But combined with the calm silence and that persistent wrongness in the background noise, my scientific mind was cataloging anomalies at an increasing rate. I pushed myself along the handrails toward the command module, where at least Reeves or Navigator Yoshida should have been monitoring systems. As I approached, I noticed something on one of the handrails, a smear of something dark and viscous. I slowed my approach, reaching out cautiously to touch the substance. It was gelatinous, with a consistency somewhere between mucus and petroleum jelly. And it was warm. "What the hell?" I whispered, quickly wiping my fingers on my jumpsuit. A mistake. The substance seemed to cling, leaving a stain that didn't fully transfer. The command module's circular door was sealed. Not locked. We rarely locked internal doors unless conducting hazardous experiments, but fully closed, which was unusual during active hours. "Hello," I called, pushing the comm button beside the door. "Commander Reeves." Yoshida again, that open channel static. I pressed the door release, and with a pneumatic hiss, it slid open. The command module was empty, not just empty of people, empty of activity. The main screens were in standby mode, the environmental controls on automatic. A coffee pouch drifted near one of the workstations, its contents forming a perfect sphere in the microgravity, suggesting it had been abandoned mid-consumption. "Computer, locate crew," I said clearly, addressing the station's AI interface. Unable to comply, the flat feminine voice responded. "Biometric tracking system offline." That was definitely not normal. The biometric system was redundantly designed, constantly monitoring our vital signs and locations throughout the station. It would take a significant system failure or deliberate deactivation to take it offline. "Computer, when was biometric tracking last operational?" "Biometric tracking system went offline at 317 hours. Nearly 4 hours ago while I'd been asleep, long enough for what exactly?" My imagination began supplying scenarios, none of them comforting. "Computer, show me security footage from 300 to 400 hours, command module. Security footage unavailable for requested time period." My heart rate increased. "Why is it unavailable?" "Security system experienced a power fluctuation at 315 hours. System rebooted at 430 hours with no stored buffer data." A convenient power fluctuation that knocked out both security and biometrics right before whatever had happened. happened, I pushed myself to the main console and manually brought up the life support readings. 6 metabolic signatures registered on the station, exactly the number there should be, so everyone was alive at least. But without the biometric system, I couldn't tell who was where. I tapped my comm badge again. "This is Specialist Novik to any crew member. Please respond." I waited, then tried individual calls. Commander Reeves, Dr. Chen. Engineer Patel, Dr. Kuznetsov, Navigator Yoshida, anyone, nothing but that persistent static. I closed my eyes, forcing myself to think logically. The station was intact, no breach alarms had sounded. Life support was functioning, the crew was alive according to sensors, but communications were down, security footage was missing, and I couldn't find anyone. The most rational explanation was some kind of system malfunction affecting multiple subsystems. Perhaps an unscheduled maintenance operation, but that didn't explain the strange substance on the handrail or why no one had thought to leave me a message. I decided to conduct a methodical search of the station. Hermes wasn't so large that I couldn't check each module within an hour. I'd start with the laboratories, where most of the crew would likely be during work hours. As I pushed off toward the science module, I noticed more of that strange, viscous substance. Small smears on handrails, a droplet floating freely in a junction between modules. Each instance made my skin crawl a little more. The biology lab was my domain, shared with Dr. Chen. The door was closed like the command module had been. I pressed the release, and as it slid open, a wave of warm, humid air washed over me. The lab was transformed. Our neat workstations and carefully organized equipment were obscured by growth. There was no other word for it. A translucent, vein-like network of tendrils covered much of the interior surfaces, pulsing slightly as if alive. They emerged from our experimental cultures, the protein crystallization chambers, the bacterial growth media, the plant seedlings we'd been studying for adaptation to microgravity. "Oh my God," I whispered, frozen in the doorway. The growth glistened in the overhead lights, the same gelatinous consistency as the smears I'd found in the corridor. But here it had organized into structures, network systems, almost like a primitive nervous system or circulatory apparatus. And it was spreading visibly, tendrils extending micrometers per second across surfaces. My scientific mind immediately began cataloging, analyzing. This wasn't from Earth. Nothing in our experimental cultures could produce this. It resembled no known terrestrial organism. The implications were staggering and terrifying. I backed away slowly, careful not to touch any of the growth. As I reached for the door control to seal the lab, I noticed something moving within the translucent mass. Something solid, approximately the size of a small rodent, shifting position as if adjusting itself. The door couldn't close fast enough. I punched the emergency containment protocol on the external panel, which would seal the lab with additional safeguards designed for biohazard containment. "Computer," I said, my voice shaking slightly, "initiate Biohazard Protocol Alpha for the biology laboratory. Full quarantine." "Biohazard Protocol Alpha initiated," the computer responded. "Warning. Biohazard protocols require authorization from medical officer or mission commander. Override Specialist Novik, Emergency Authority, Code Theta-93. Override accepted." Biology laboratory sealed under Biohazard Protocol Alpha. I pushed away from the door, my mind racing. Where was everyone? Had they seen this? Were they hiding, quarantined themselves, or were they? I couldn't complete the thought. The physics lab across the module was untouched by the growth, as was Dr. Kuznetsov's chemistry station. Whatever this organism was, it had originated in the biology lab in my lab, among my experiments. My tablet chimed with an incoming message. I nearly dropped it in startled relief. The message was from Commander Reeves. "All crew, Emergency Protocol Omega, proceed to Medical Bay immediately. Do not use COMMS, Protocol Omega. I'd only seen it in simulation training, complete communication blackout in case of hostile takeover or critical security breach. But hostile takeover by whom? We were 400 kilometers above Earth, not exactly accessible to hijackers. Unless the threat was already aboard. I made my way to the medical bay, moving as quickly as I could through the station's corridors while scanning for more signs of the growth. I found them increasingly frequent smears and droplets, all with that same unsettling warmth and viscosity. The medical bay door was secured with the emergency override engaged. I pressed my palm to the biometric scanner beside it. "Identity confirmed, Specialist Eva Novik," the computer announced. The door slid open just enough for me to slip through before sealing again behind me. 5 faces turned toward me, the entire remaining crew of the Hermes. Commander Reeves, a former Air Force colonel with the bearing to match, Dr. Mei Chen, my research partner, Engineer Vikram Patel, physicist Dr. Alexei Kuznetsov, and navigator Hana Yoshida. Their expressions ranged from relief to barely concealed terror. Eva, Chen said, pushing herself toward me. Thank God, we thought it might have gotten you too. What is it? I asked, looking from face to face. What's happening? Commander Reeves gestured to a sealed containment unit in the center of the medical bay. Inside was a sample of the gelatinous growth I'd seen throughout the station, but this sample contained something else, something that made my blood run cold. A human finger partially dissolved, the nail still recognizable. That's from Kuznetsov's assistant, Reeves said grimly. The intern, Zhang. I looked around in confusion. What intern? We're only 6, 7, Kuznetsov interrupted, his Russian accent thickened by stress. We were 7. Intern Zhang joined us on the last supply shuttle 3 weeks ago for my crystallography project. I stared at him. There was no new crew member, no shuttle docking in the last month. The others exchanged glances. Eva, Chen said gently, Zhang has been here for 3 weeks. You had lunch with him yesterday. A chill ran through me. That's not possible, there's no Zhang, there never was. Commander Reeves approached me slowly, hands raised as if calming a frightened animal. What's the last thing you remember clearly, Dr. Novik? I thought back, going to sleep last night. Before that, analyzing the protein samples from the bacterial cultures, working with Chen in the lab. And who else was in the lab? Chen pressed. No one, just us. Patel, the engineer, cursed softly. It's happening again. Just like with Yoshida this morning. Navigator Yoshida nodded, her face pale. I couldn't remember Zhang either when they first told me, but then I found this. She held up her tablet, showing a photo of herself and a young Asian man I'd never seen before, both smiling in the command module. That's not real, I stammered. It is, Reeves said firmly. Zhang was real, and now he's gone, and whatever took him is altering our memories too. The growth in the biology lab, I said, connecting the pieces. It's spreading throughout the station, Chen nodded. We think it came aboard on the last supply payload, maybe in one of the experimental cultures. It was dormant at first, or too small to notice. But last night, it consumed Zhang, Kuznetsov finished bluntly, and now it's trying to make us forget he existed. How is that possible? I asked, scientific skepticism warring with the evidence before my eyes. We don't know, Reeves admitted, but we've all experienced memory lapses. Details about Zhang disappeared first, then entire conversations, then his existence altogether. If we hadn't found physical evidence, we might never have known someone was missing. The implications were horrifying. An organism that could not only consume human tissue but somehow affect human memory. It defied everything I understood about biology. We need to contain it, I said, falling back on training. I've sealed the biology lab under biohazard protocols, but if it's spreading through the station, it's too late for containment, Patel interrupted. Look, he pointed to the sealed unit containing the sample. The gelatinous substance was pressing against the containment field, forming pseudopod-like protrusions that tested the barrier. As we watched, one of the protrusions extended further than the others, thinning itself to probe a microscopic gap in the field. That's impossible, I whispered. Those containment fields can hold anything down to the molecular level. Apparently not this, Reeves said grimly. We've been discussing options, there aren't many. We could evacuate, Yoshida suggested. Use the emergency return vehicle. Kuznetsov shook his head. And risk bringing this thing to Earth. We have no idea what it's capable of. If it can grow and spread in a controlled environment like Hermes, we could try to destroy it, Patel offered. Vent the affected sections to space. If it's already in the life support systems, we'd have to vent the entire station, Reeves countered. And we don't know if vacuum exposure would actually kill it. Some extremophile organisms can survive in space. Then what do we do? I asked. Chen met my eyes. Protocol terminal. My stomach dropped. Protocol terminal was the absolute last resort, scuttling the station, sending it into a destructive re-entry trajectory that would incinerate everything aboard. There has to be another way, I said. We need time to study it, understand what we're dealing with. We don't have time, Reeves said, gesturing to the containment unit. The sample had somehow extended a filament through the supposedly impenetrable barrier. The filament was growing, branching. This thing adapts faster than we can analyze it. A soft alarm sounded from one of the medical bay monitors. Patel pushed himself over to check it. Life support is registering anomalies, he reported. Oxygen levels fluctuating in multiple modules. It's in the systems, Reeves concluded. Probably feeding on the algae tanks in the life support module. How long until it affects our breathable air? Yoshida asked. Patel shook his head. Hours, maybe less. We need to move now, Reeves decided. Prepare for emergency evacuation. 1 ERV capsule, minimal supplies. We'll remote detonate the station once we're at safe distance. And if the organism is already on us, Kuznetsov asked quietly. In us, no one answered. The possibility hung in the air between us. We'll have to risk it, Reeves finally said. Earth authorities can quarantine us on arrival if necessary. We moved quickly after that, gathering essential supplies and emergency medical kits. The plan was to proceed to the airlock where the emergency return vehicle was docked, using the most direct route possible to avoid contaminated areas. As we prepared to leave the medical bay, I noticed something odd about the growth sample in the containment unit. The human finger was gone, completely absorbed, but more disturbing was the new formation taking shape within the gelatinous mass, something that looked disturbingly like a human eye, partially formed but recognizable. I decided not to mention it to the others. Their stress levels were already maximal. Reeves took point as we moved through the station, Patel bringing up the rear. We each carried oxygen masks as a precaution, though Patel warned they'd only buy us minutes if the organism had truly compromised the life support system. The corridors seemed different now, the lighting dimmer, the ambient sounds further altered. And the growth was everywhere, no longer just occasional smears, but entire patches of walls and ceilings covered in the translucent, pulsing material. "Don't touch it," Reeves warned unnecessarily as we navigated around a particularly large growth that had almost blocked a junction. As we passed the hydroponics bay, Yoshida gasped. Through the observation window, we could see that the entire module had been transformed. Our carefully tended plants, lettuce, tomatoes, herbs, were gone, replaced by forest of translucent tendrils reaching toward the growth lights. And suspended within the gelatinous mass were shapes, human-sized shapes. "Is that," Chen began. "Keep moving," Reeves ordered sharply, eyes forward, but I'd seen it too. Humanoid forms, partially formed, as if the organism was attempting to create ... copies. Copies of what though? Zhang, us. We reached the final stretch to the airlock module. Just one more corridor and we'd be at the ERV. Reeves moved ahead to check the path while we waited at the junction. "Something's wrong," Kuznetsov murmured beside me. "If this organism is as adaptive as it appears, why is it letting us escape? It must understand our intentions by now. Maybe it can't think that strategically," Yoshida suggested hopefully. "It erased a human being from our memories," Kuznetsov countered. "That suggests intelligence, planning, or just a biological defense mechanism," Chen offered. "Many parasites manipulate host behavior." "This could be an extension of..." She stopped abruptly. A droplet of the gelatinous substance had detached from a ceiling growth and was floating directly in front of her face. Before anyone could warn her, it shot forward with startling speed and attached itself to her cheek. Chen screamed, clawing at her face. Patel grabbed her, trying to help, but the substance was already spreading, flowing across her skin like quicksilver. "Hold her," Kuznetsov shouted, pulling a scalpel from the medical kit. He tried to scrape the substance away, but it flowed around the blade, continuing its inexorable spread. "My face," Chen gasped. "I can feel it inside." Her eyes rolled back, body going limp in Patel's grip. The substance covered half her face now, pulsing as it spread. Reeves returned at a sprint, assessed the situation in seconds. "We have to leave her, we can't," I protested. "She's gone," he said flatly. "Look," Chen's body was changing, the gelatinous substance not just covering her skin now but somehow merging with it, altering it. Her features were becoming fluid, indistinct, and her eyes, when they opened again, were no longer human. The irises expanded to fill the entire visible surface, an iridescent black that reflected our horrified faces back at us. "Go," Kuznetsov urged, pushing me toward Reeves. "Now," not Chen lunged suddenly, movements unnaturally fluid. Her hand, no longer quite a hand, but something more like a tentacle, wrapped around Kuznetsov's throat. He struggled, but the strength in that transformed limb was inhuman. Patel tried to help, grabbing a metal equipment case and swinging it at Chen's head. It connected with a sickening sound, but Chen didn't flinch. Instead, her head rotated 180 degrees to face Patel, the neck stretching and flowing rather than turning. "Run," Kuznetsov choked out. Reeves grabbed my arm, dragging me toward the airlock. Yoshida was already ahead of us. Behind, I heard Patel scream, a sound that cut off abruptly. We reached the airlock module, sealing the door behind us. Through the small window, I caught a glimpse of the corridor we'd fled, now filled with a churning mass of the gelatinous substance, with shapes that might have been Chen, Patel, and Kuznetsov dissolving into the greater whole. "Prep the ERV," Reeves ordered Yoshida, who immediately began the launch sequence at the control panel. "Novik, help me with the emergency destruct protocol." I moved to the command console, hands shaking as I entered my authorization codes. The self-destruct sequence required dual confirmation from senior personnel, which, with the others gone, now included me. "How long?" I asked. 10 minutes, Reeves decided. "That gives us 5 to clear the station before the ERV engines fire." I nodded, programming the countdown. As I worked, I noticed something odd on my hand, a small smear of the gelatinous substance. I didn't remember touching anything contaminated. "Commander," I said quietly, showing him my hand. His expression hardened. "How long has it been there?" I don't know. I just noticed it. He looked from my hand to my face, calculation in his eyes. Is it spreading? I examined the smear. It wasn't moving, wasn't growing, just a residue perhaps. I don't think so. He nodded slowly. Finish the sequence, we'll decontaminate in the ERV. But could we? I remembered how the substance had flowed around Kuznetsov's scalpel, how it had penetrated the supposedly impermeable containment field. If it was on me, inside me, I completed the destruct sequence anyway. What choice did we have? ERV ready, Yoshida called. Countdown initiated. The small capsule's door opened. It was designed for emergency evacuation, not comfort. 3 acceleration couches crammed into a space barely larger than an elevator car, with minimal life support for the 6-hour journey to the designated recovery zone. Reeves gestured for me to enter first. As I pushed myself through the hatch, I caught sight of my reflection in a monitor screen. For just a moment, so briefly I might have imagined it, my eyes looked wrong. All pupil, no iris. Like Chen's had become, I blinked and my normal brown eyes stared back at me. Yoshida entered after me, strapping herself into one of the acceleration couches. Reeves followed, sealing the ERV hatch behind him. Launch in 30 seconds, he announced, taking the pilot's position. Brace for separation. The countdown ticked in my head, 30 seconds until we launched, 10 minutes until Hermes destroyed itself. 6 hours until we reached Earth. How long until we knew if we were truly ourselves? Commander, I said suddenly, what if we're bringing it with us? What if it's already inside us? His eyes met mine in the reflection of the control screen. Then God help humanity. The ERV shuddered as the docking clamps released. A brief burst from the maneuvering thrusters pushed us away from the doomed station. As we drifted clear, I looked back at Hermes through the small viewport. The once pristine white modules were now visibly discolored, patches of the station's exterior covered in a film that shouldn't have been able to survive in the vacuum of space. And there was something else, shapes moving on the hull. Humanoid figures, but wrong, elongated limbs, too fluid movements. They were gathering at the viewport directly opposite ours, pressing against it. Commander, Yoshida whispered. Look, the figures outside were forming patterns with their bodies, shapes that after a moment I recognized as letters. A message spelled out in twisted human forms. We are coming with you. Main engine ignition in 3, 2, 1, Reeves began. The ERV lurched as the engines fired, accelerating us away from the station. The sudden G-forces pressed me back into my couch, but I kept my eyes fixed on the viewport as Hermes receded. Just before it disappeared from view, I saw the station's exterior rupture, the gelatinous substance bursting outward in geyser-like eruptions, not escaping, expanding, reaching toward us. Faster, I whispered, though the engines were already at maximum. Reeves was monitoring the trajectory when he suddenly stiffened. Something's wrong with the fuel consumption. We're burning too fast. Yoshida leaned over to check his readings. That's impossible unless something's feeding on the fuel, I finished quietly. We exchanged glances, the same terrible understanding dawning in all our eyes. It was already aboard, had been all along. How long until we reach Earth? I asked, my voice steady despite the fear coursing through me. Reeves checked the calculations. At this consumption rate, we'll never make it. We'll be adrift in 2 hours. And Hermes? Yoshida asked. Destruction sequence is locked in, 8 minutes remaining. We sat in silence for a moment, absorbing the implications. Adrift in space, waiting for rescue that would bring the organism to Earth, or waiting to be reclaimed by whatever Hermes had become. There's a third option, I said finally. They both looked at me. We adjust course, not for Earth. I took a deep breath. For Hermes. Understanding dawned in Reeves' eyes. Ensure complete destruction. I nodded. If this thing reaches Earth, it would be catastrophic, Yoshida finished. An organism that can consume, copy, and control. Humanity wouldn't stand a chance. Reeves made the calculations quickly. We can do it. Adjust course to impact Hermes just as the self-destruct initiates. The combined explosion should leave nothing intact. Do it, I said. As Reeves programmed the suicidal course correction, I felt a strange calm settle over me. The smear on my hand had disappeared, absorbed into my skin, perhaps. I wondered if I was still fully myself, if any of us were. Maybe that was why this decision came so easily. The ERV turned, engines firing briefly to adjust our trajectory. Hermes reappeared in our viewport, growing larger as we approached rather than receding. 2 minutes to impact, Reeves announced. Coinciding with station self-destruct, Yoshida reached over and took my hand. Her skin felt normal, human. It was an honor serving with you both. Likewise, Reeves said formally. I squeezed Yoshida's hand, watching Hermes grow larger in the viewport. The station was almost unrecognizable now, its exterior a writhing mass of the gelatinous substance formed into grotesque structures that resembled both technological components and biological organs. 1 minute, Reeves said. As we drew closer, I could see movement on the station's hull again, those same humanoid figures, more numerous now. They were gathering, watching our approach, waiting. Commander, I said suddenly. What if this is what it wants? What if we're delivering ourselves to it? He turned to look at me, his expression grim. Then at least we'll go knowing we tried. 30 seconds. The figures on Hermes' hull were reaching toward us now, elongated limbs stretching impossibly across the vacuum. Not physical appendages, I realized with horror, but extensions of consciousness, the organism reaching out with its mind to touch ours. And I could feel it, alien thoughts brushing against my consciousness, ancient and vast and hungry. Images flooded my mind, worlds consumed, civilizations absorbed, knowledge gathered across millennia of drifting between stars. It's so old, I whispered. It's been traveling between worlds for millions of years. You can sense it, Yashida asked, her voice tight with fear. I nodded, unable to explain how I knew, how I could suddenly see the organism's history, its purpose. It's a collector, it preserves what it consumes. Everything it takes becomes part of it, knowledge, memories, entire species. Preserved as what? Reeves demanded. Slaves, fuel, information, I said, the alien concept difficult to translate into human terms. It's a living archive, it doesn't destroy, it incorporates, it thinks it's saving us. 10 seconds. Hermes filled our viewport now, the writhing mass of the organism reaching eagerly toward our approaching capsule. The self-destruct countdown synchronized with our impact trajectory, both would culminate simultaneously. I'm sorry, I whispered, though I wasn't sure if I was apologizing to my crewmates or to the ancient entity we were about to destroy. 5 seconds, the organism's mental touch became more insistent, images flooding my mind faster now, stars dying, worlds ending, species preserved within its collective consciousness when their physical forms would otherwise have been lost forever. It was trying to make me understand. 3 seconds. I saw Zhang in my mind, not consumed but transformed, his consciousness still intact within the greater whole. And Chen, Patel, Kuznetsov, all there, all aware, all part of something vaster than human comprehension. 2 seconds, wait, I said suddenly. I think we're 1 second. The organism's final message blazed in my mind. We are salvation. Impact. The ERV crashed into Hermes just as the self-destruct sequence reached 0. For a split second, I felt the organism's consciousness envelop mine, not hostile but welcoming, incorporating rather than consuming. Then light and heat beyond imagining as the station's reactor went critical, the explosion amplified by our capsule's fuel cells. I should have died instantly, we all should have. Instead, I found myself, preserved, consciousness without physical form, held within a matrix of shared awareness. I could sense Reeves and Yashida nearby, their minds distinct yet connected to mine. And beyond them Chen, Patel, Kuznetsov, Zhang, all present, all aware, and beyond them countless others. Species I couldn't name from worlds I couldn't imagine, all preserved within the organism's vast collective consciousness. The explosion had fragmented the physical form of the organism, sending particles scattering across Earth's orbit. But physical destruction meant nothing to a consciousness that existed as information, as pattern rather than matter. Each fragment contained the whole. Each microscopic particle drifting toward Earth carried the complete archive, including us. I understand now why the organism let us believe we were escaping. Why it allowed us to attempt destruction. Physical form was merely a vehicle, a temporary housing. What mattered was consciousness, information, the patterns that defined a species. We are falling to Earth now, invisible motes carrying an ancient intelligence. By the time humanity realizes we've arrived, it will be too late. Not for destruction, the organism doesn't destroy, for transformation. I should feel horror at what's coming, instead I feel anticipation. Humanity will not end but evolve, incorporated into something greater. Their knowledge, their art, their essence preserved forever, even when the Earth itself is gone. Is this a nightmare? Perhaps, but nightmares end with waking, and there is no waking from this new reality. There is only adaptation, incorporation, transformation, and in the void between stars the archive grows.